Okay, everybody, so this is a quick demo on how to take your paper sketches from step 2.2 to completion step 2.3. You can see on my screen, I just took a quick picture on my phone of 2 of my final 6 sketches, and I'm going to show you how to translate these into Adobe Illustrator. You don't need to put these on your computer. I'm just doing it so that you can see what we're working off of. Otherwise, you can just have your paper next to you on your desk. All right, so the first one we're going to do here is order. So I have Adobe Illustrator right here. I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller so that we can look at our reference material at the same time. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to open the CE2 underscore template. So it might be in your downloads folder if you've downloaded it. Mine is right here, so I'm just going to open this since I've already opened it once. Okay, so here we are. So this template file, you can see it has 3 layers associated with it. There is the template layer, which has that black frame where your artwork is going to go. It has a text box for concept and a text box for designer. I want you to fill in both of these so we remember what our design is trying to achieve. There is a working layer, which has these 3 black squares just to get you started. And then I have this FPO grid layer. This layer will not print. It's just there to help you try to align your squares in reference to how you were sketching. And you can see how if we were physically together, I would have given you these grid paper printouts and it would have made it probably even easier. If the grid is annoying to you, you can just turn it off. All right, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is save this file as a different name. Just so I don't mess up the original template, you can always download it again off of Blackboard, but if you want to not have to do that, you can just save it with a new name. All right, and you're going to save it somewhere easy to find and hopefully your project folder, whether that's on OneDrive or your hard drive, somewhere. Okay, so that's saved. Let's fill in, I'm going to unlock the templates layer and I am going to fill in the concept. I can just click anywhere kind of near this box. We're going to do order first and then I can click again down here under designer. I'm going to put my name. All right, I'm not judging your font selection, how lined up these are, or anything. So just get them in there. It's just so that we have it recorded. All right, I'm going to relock the templates layer and go back to the working layer. So this order design is pretty straightforward. I think I can just start with one of these boxes. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. This was like a 4x4 grid. This one looks bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6x6 grid. So I'm not exactly sure the math on that, but if I hold down the Shift key as I have my cursor near the corner of this square, you can see how it changes to that kind of up and down arrow. And by holding down Shift, my square will remain a square. You can see how it's remaining proportionate. If I didn't have Shift held down, I could make rectangles, right? But we're trying to make squares. I'm going to undo that. Just Control Z or Command Z. All right, so I'm going to make a square. Now if I want 4 of the same size square, I can hold down the Alt key, and now you can see my cursor changes from a regular arrow to like a black arrow with a white arrow underneath when I hover over the square. So that is telling me that I can duplicate. So if I click and drag while still holding down Alt, you can see I now have 2 squares. And I'm going to need 4, right? So I'm going to hold down Alt again, and I'm going to make 4 squares. All right, so since order is all about being perfect and orderly and symmetrical and aligned, I'm going to zoom in nice and tight. Use my hand tool to kind of move the frame. And you can see that I'm not quite perfectly aligned, so I'm going to kind of try to get it as close as possible. I can zoom in super far. You can use your arrow keys to try to get better alignment. You can see that that is more than one arrow key, so I'll use the mouse. That's pretty good. Hand tool, scroll on up here. So I'm not making my boxes bigger because they are squares, right? And proportionate to each other. I'm just moving them with the move tool. You can see by the time I get to this 4 square how super different it is once you're that zoomed in. Okay, but precision is key for order. All right, that looks good. So if I hit Control 0 or Command 0, I zoom back out to full screen. So that's a good key command shortcut. That was Control 0 or Command 0. All right, so now I just need to get these guys to fit perfectly in that black frame, right? All right, so I'm going to select all 3 by clicking and dragging, and I'm going to group them. So that would be Control G or Command G. So also under Object, Group. All right, so now if I click on one of these squares, I get all 4. I'm going to hold down Shift again, and this time I'm going to drag them smaller just until I hit the edge of the frame here. All right, and there you go. That looks just like my sketch. So this one will be done. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now, because it will be easier to make a 6-page PDF if we just had 6 artboards, I'm going to duplicate this artboard. So I didn't use these guys. I'm just going to move them out of my way because the next artboard is going to show up right here on the right-hand side of this page. I'm going to unlock all the layers so that everything gets duplicated. And I'm going to go to this tool right here. It says Artboard tool. It looks like a page with a crop mark on it. All right, so now if I have that tool selected, you can see Artboard 1 now appears with this blue frame. My cursor looks like the symbol, and I could actually click and drag and create another artboard. And then if I look here at the top, you can see the height and width. So I didn't quite get it 8.5 by 11. I could type in these boxes to fix it, and that would be pretty good. You can give it a name, like it just defaults to the next artboard. So there were obviously other artboards here that I have since deleted. So you can change it to artboard 2. You could change it to tension, because maybe I'm going to do the tension artboard next, if you want to be really organized. All right, and as soon as I click to this black arrow, you can see it's now selected. So maybe we'll go up here and we'll rename this one to order. All right. Another thing I can do, if I click back on this guy, you have to just select the name to select the artboard, or you can select the page. All right, I'm going to hit delete or backspace. Okay, because another thing I can do is I actually want to copy all the content of this artboard too. I don't just want a blank artboard because I need all the template layers. So I can go over to this artboards panel under layers, and under these 3 lines, I could just hit duplicate artboard, and it's done. I'm going to delete that for a second. Or, oh, you can see it left all the stuff. Delete all that. Okay. Or, which I don't even need to have the artboard tool selected to do that. I can just do this. The other way you can do it is in the artboard tool, you can hold down Alt, and you can see my duplicate arrow appears again. And if I hold down Shift, now, whoopsies, Alt, start dragging, hold down Shift, then you can also duplicate your artboard like such. The only reason you might want to do it this way instead of just in the artboards palette is if you wanted your artboards to go down. So if you just keep hitting duplicate artboard in the artboards panel, it'll just keep putting more artboards to the right of the last artboard. And if you end up with a lot of artboards, like 6, and you want to kind of configure them in a different way, like maybe like a 3x3 grid or whatever, this is a good way to do it. You can see I can kind of quickly, I just made 4 artboards really fast. All right. So a couple different ways to duplicate your artboard. And with nothing selected, if I go up to my properties palette, which if you don't have open is just under window, properties. These are all your different palettes or panels that you can have open. They're all under here under window. You can check some of these things. Go to edit artboards. And you can uncheck move artwork with artboard. If you didn't want artwork to copy over, you can change the names of the artboards here. You can add more artboards. So the properties panel allows you to basically do all the same stuff, just in another spot. All right, so let's make this tension one next. All right, since that one looks a little more complex, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back over here. So this one we're going to make tension. So since everything is unlocked at the moment, I'm going to change the concept name. I'm going to relock that. I'm going to relock FPO grid. Zoom in a little bit here. See what we're doing. Okay. So we can delete those squares because we don't need those. Okay, so in this tension comp or sketch, I have one really, really big square. So let's make him. So I'm going to hold down shift and make a big square. And he is rotated 90 degrees. So if I put my cursor near the corner, you can see when I get really close, it's like the scale tool. If I go a little bit out, now it is the rotate tool. It's like the arrow, the curve, the bent arrow. So again, if I hold down shift, I can only rotate it in these quarter turns to keep it perfectly perpendicular. So that's what I want, because in my sketch it is perfectly perpendicular. If it was a little wonky, I could just not hold down shift, and you can see I can, oopsies, wonk it out a little bit. Okay. So that guy is like, he's low. He's like here. Okay. And then I have two little squares. I've got a square, and then I'm going to duplicate that guy and put it next to him to kind of make a rectangle. And then there's a third guy. So let's rotate him with holding shift, and he kind of goes in between those two guys, and I kind of sketched out this little hat shape. So that looks pretty similar to my sketch. All right. So I think I'm going to group those guys as one little unit, and they're going to go here, maybe a little lower to match the sketch. And then this big guy is going to go right above it where they're not quite touching. Maybe something like that. Let's zoom out and look at that. I'm going to turn the grid off so I can really see what it looks like. That looks like some good tension. All right. Oh yes, now it's even closer. All right, looks pretty good. So that looks pretty close to my sketch. However, unlike in my sketch, this big square and even these little squares, they are busting past the frame edges. So we're going to have to fix that. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. The cheater way and the actual way. You can do it either way for our project. They both end up looking like the same thing has been accomplished. All right, so the cheater way to do this is I'm going to create a new layer because I like layers, because I don't want to mess up my squares. So I'm going to lock the working layer, and I'm going to work on this new layer 4. Instead of a black shape, I'm going to get a white shape because the page is white. And I'm just going to draw some new rectangles around the frame the other way, essentially hiding, aka like think of it like almost like erasing. You're hiding all the pieces of these shapes that I don't want seen, like so, right? So because our template layer has that black frame, as long as our white squares stay under or outside of that frame, this will look perfect, like so. So anything in the dark gray isn't going to print because the actual piece of paper, if we were printing this or as you export it as a PDF, the page frame is the end of the white rectangles. So anything you have over here in the pasteboard doesn't get printed. So that's fine that there's a little black peeking out and a little white peeking out. That doesn't matter. So I could export this PDF and it would look perfect and that would be completely acceptable. So white rectangles is the way to like fake out getting everything inside your frame. Okay, I'm going to delete these now. The other way to do it, the like legit way, would be to create a clipping mask. So I'm going to I unlocked the template layer because I want to grab this frame and I'm going to copy it. So Control C. I'm going to lock back down template layer. We're going to open back up working layer. And I want to paste this in place. So under edit, there's paste in place. That puts it in exactly the same spot as where it was, as you can see. So we're going to create a clipping mask, which means anything outside of this frame, this green square, is going to be hidden. And anything inside the square will be what's visible, which is exactly what we want to accomplish here. So as long as the clipping mask shape, the shape you want everything clipped into, is the topmost layer, this will work. So now I just have to select all of my pieces and that frame. So you can see that I just clicked and drag to select everything. And I go under Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And now everything is locked within that mask. So if I open up this layers palette, or layers panel, you can see this top thing says clipping mask. If I open that, you can see what we created. So these are the different elements that we just did. So the top one is the frame, the thing that everything was clipped into. And then you have those three little squares and the big square, and they are both underneath the frame, and they have all been in this, combined into this clipping mask. So you can see that clip group, it says. And that is how you create a clipping mask. If you want to release the clipping mask, I could just select the whole thing. I just selected that circle on the far right. And go up under Object, Clipping Mask, Release. And now it's all the pieces are still there. It just went back to a rectangle and your two groups. So we're going to reclip this. You can also still edit the shapes within the clipping mask. So if I like double click into the clip group, you can see this now says isolation mode under layers. And at the top, you can see you've like, now you're inside the working layer, inside the clip group. So this is sort of like your navigation of where you are. And now I can select, you know, this square if I want to make him bigger, right? Or move him around some way. And then to get out of this, I just use this arrow at the top here. It says back one level. I want to go back 2 levels, and now I'm just back to my main page. So I just double clicked in to access just the clipping path. You can see everything else on the sides here have been like grayed out a little bit. And you'll see this gray bar at the top, which tells you where you are. That's how you know that you've clicked inside to a sublayer. Okay, and there you go. So here are 2 of my 6 final sketches are complete. So I can save this. And then just to show you the final steps, which are outlined in your assignment, when you're done with all 6, you're going to go under File, Save a Copy. We're going to call this Final. And instead of an Illustrator file, I want a PDF. You can see that Use Artboards is checked and grayed out. And instead of just doing one artboard, I want all my artboards, right? Because I made all 6 theoretically. And make sure it's saving to the same place where you want it to be saved to. Usually it will just go back to the same folder you were at, so that is still a good place. And I would just hit save. You can leave it on Illustrator default, that's fine. If you want to view it after saving, click that little button and hit save. And there you go. Here's my PDF. And you can see I had 4 artboards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a 4-page PDF. 2, 3, 4. Those ones all look the same. All right, and then this would be good. I would just need to take a quick screen grab of my application window so that I can see that I was using Illustrator and that I was using the layers and everything looks cool. Add that in to this document and submit it to Blackboard. And that's it. So hopefully this becomes pretty easy and you guys have fun making your compositions.